The air in the room is heavy with a tension that could snap at any moment. The temple has come to collect what they believe is theirs, and they aren't here for a polite conversation. They demand the return of Saint Dinah. To them, she is a tool, a holy relic that was never meant to leave their grasp. The priests stand firm, their voices echoing through the hall, treating a human life like a misplaced piece of property that must be returned to the fold. A sharp, mocking scoff breaks the silence. The Archduke finds their entitlement almost laughable, but the laughter ends the moment they open their mouths to justify their claim. They speak with a casual cruelty that reveals their true nature. The Archduke flinches, not out of fear, but from a rising, cold fury that darkens his gaze. He repeats their words under his breath. A lowly thing? The disrespect is the final spark in a room full of gunpowder. The high priest continues, oblivious to the predator sitting right in front of him. He bellows about the transaction, complaining that a saint on the verge of awakening was sold for far too little. To these men of God, she was just a bargain they regret making. The Archduke has heard enough. He doesn't use words to respond. He uses force. A violent smash echoes through the chamber, shattering the priest's composure along with the furniture. The holy men are tossed to the ground like common trash. The Archduke's patience has completely evaporated. The sound of steel sliding from its scabbard fills the room, cold and final. A blade is leveled at the priest's throat. The power dynamic has shifted irrevocably. In this moment, he isn't just a duke protecting an investment. He is a father drawing a line in the sand. He looms over them, asking if they truly believed they could insult House Tercia and walk away unscathed. The priests scramble to hide behind their divinity, warning him that his actions are nothing short of a declaration of war against the temple itself. He stares them down, his eyes devoid of mercy. He knows exactly what he's doing. For a split second, the priest thinks he sees a flicker of hesitation. He thinks a wise choice is being made. He is wrong. The Archduke strikes with a lethal, blinding speed that leaves no room for prayer. He cleans the blood from his blade with a chillingly calm gesture. This was a necessity, a cleanup long overdue. He gives them a new truth to take back to their masters. Her name is not Dinah. It never was. She is Esther. She is his daughter. And if they ever dare to speak of her with such filth again, he will burn the temple to the ground. The scene shifts, leaving the blood and the threats behind for the warmth of the afternoon sun. In a lush, vibrant garden, a young girl sits peacefully, unaware of the storm her father just weathered for her sake. This is the child the temple called lowly, the girl for whom a duke is willing to set the world on fire. Esther looks up, her eyes bright and filled with life. The war has been declared, but for her, the peace is only just beginning. Deep in the bowels of the holy city, where the light of the goddess supposedly never fades, a shadow moves with practiced elegance through the damp stone corridors. The clicking of heels echoes against the walls, announcing the arrival of a woman whose presence is as commanding as it is beautiful. This is Saint Levine. To the world, she is a beacon of mercy, a woman whose heart is as pure as the lilies that surround her image in the cathedrals. Her followers watch her every move with adoration, convinced that her devotion is the only thing keeping the empire safe from the darkness. She speaks of wayward lambs and the duty of a saint to never give up on a soul, wearing a smile that could fool the heavens themselves. Even her closest advisors are moved to tears by her apparent benevolence, believing her to be a paragon of friendship and grace. But as the heavy iron gates of the deepest dungeon creak open, the mask of the holy woman begins to slip, revealing the cold ambition beneath. Here, hidden from the eyes of the faithful, lies the empire's darkest secret, A girl bound in glowing chains, suspended in a void of silence and pain. This is Dinah. Gagged and broken, she can only watch as her so-called friend approaches, her eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and exhaustion. Levine's voice drops the mock sweetness, replaced by a sharp, demanding tone. She doesn't see a person before her, she sees a resource that is running dry. The advisors linger at the door, their faces twisted in a performative pity that only adds to the cruelty of the scene. Levine complains that her divine power is fading too quickly, her greed for the light making her impatient with the girl she has imprisoned. She stares at a glass vial, her eyes reflecting a hunger that no prayer could ever satisfy. She needs more, and she doesn't care what it costs Dinah. A frown mars her perfect features. The precious friend is now just a naughty girl who isn't producing enough of the miracle Levine craves. Dinah flinches, her body trembling under the weight of the chains. She knows what comes next, and the anticipation is a torture all its own. Levine steps closer, her hand reaching out as if to comfort, but her words are a threat. She warns Dinah not to make things difficult. The saint turns her head slightly, acknowledging the presence of her most loyal protector, who has been watching from the shadows. Khalid, the knight commander, drops to one knee. He offers to handle the dirty work so that the saint's noble hands remain unstained by blood. His eyes are devoid of the warmth they once held for Dinah. He has chosen his side, and it is the side of the lie. Levine accepts his offer with a chillingly casual air, her smile returning as she watches her knight prepare to strike. Dinah's eyes well with tears. The betrayal of the man she once trusted cuts deeper than any blade ever could. Khalid steps forward, his movements mechanical and cold. He has done this many times before, and he will do it many times again. The sound of steel leaving its scabbard rings through the dungeon. It is a holy sword, blessed by the goddess, now being used for a sacrilegious purpose. Dinah stares at the blade, the light reflecting in her wide, terrified eyes. The irony of being tortured by a holy relic is not lost on her. With a swift, practiced motion, the blade descends. The chains hum with a malevolent energy as the extraction begins. A muffled cry escapes Dinah's throat. The pain is unbearable, a searing heat that feels like her very soul is being torn apart. Blood trickles down her arms, glowing with a faint, divine light. This is the source of Levine's power, the life force of the true saint. Levine watches with a look of intense concentration, her fingers pressed to her lips as if in prayer, though her heart is full of malice. The crimson liquid splashes into the vial, a precious harvest gathered in the dark. To Levine, this is merely a refill for her fading glory. She raises the vial, her eyes gleaming with triumph. The pain of another is a small price to pay for the adoration of an empire. Without a second thought, she drinks. The stolen essence flows into her, and for a moment, she feels like the goddess she pretends to be. A surge of light erupts from her body, a blinding display of power that would convince any witness of her holiness. Dinah glares through the haze of her agony. She sees the monster behind the light, the thief who has stolen her life and her destiny. Levine tosses her hair back, her voice dripping with a sickening sense of entitlement. She actually believes she is the victim in this scenario. She leans in close, her breath hot against Dinah's ear, whispering that all of this is Dinah's fault for having what belongs to her. The contrast between them is stark, the elegant, glowing saint and the bloodied, vulgar monster she has created. With a final, dismissive slap, Levine turns away. She has what she came for, and the prisoner is no longer of interest to her. She tells Dinah to pray to the goddess for forgiveness, a final insult delivered with a cold, mocking scowl. As the light fades and the dungeon grows blurry, Dinah is left alone with the echoes of Levine's laughter. The heavy door creaks shut, and the saint departs with her knight, leaving the true source of their power to rot in the silence. The Austin Empire was founded on a legacy of light, a kingdom where the saint and the emperor are said to hold equal power under the goddess. It is a land of beautiful illusions, where the splendor of the court hides the rot at the foundation of their faith. Long ago, before the empire was a beacon of hope, the world was a place of utter destruction and despair. It was an era of darkness, where monsters roamed the earth and the screams of the dying were the only music to be heard. Plagues swept through the cities, leaving nothing but corpses in their wake. It seemed as though humanity was destined for extinction. The world was a blaze of fire and blood, a time of death where not even a glimmer of hope remained for the survivors. Even the strongest warriors were driven to despair, facing horrors that defied logic and broke the spirit of the brave. They trembled in the face of the end, waiting for a salvation that seemed like it would never come. However, in the darkest hour, a light appeared, a blinding flash that tore through the shadows and silenced the monsters. The goddess Espidos descended from the heavens, her presence a radiant promise of a new beginning for the broken world. She rallied the people, her light giving them the strength to fight back against the darkness that had nearly consumed them. In her name, the empire was born, a bastion of light that succeeded in defeating the darkness under her divine blessing. The goddess ushered in an era of light that has continued for over 100 years, a golden age of peace and prosperity. The capital city became a marvel of white stone and gold, a testament to the salvation brought by the divine. They built grand temples to worship the saint who would answer the goddess's call, ensuring that the light would never fade again. But the peace they enjoy is a fragile thing, built on a foundation of lies that are starting to crumble. Back in the present, the sound of heavy boots on stone signals the arrival of the dungeon's daily visitors. Dinah remains suspended, her body a map of scars and fresh wounds, a silent witness to the cost of the Empire's peace. The door to her cell opens, and the mundane reality of her imprisonment resumes. It is time for her to be maintained. The maids whisper among themselves, their voices full of a fearful curiosity. They have heard the stories of the monster kept in the dark. They approach her with a mixture of disgust and duty, treating her like an animal that needs to be fed to keep it alive for the next harvest. Dinah's eyes, once full of light, are now bloodshot and weary. She watches them, her mind working through the fog of pain. She catches the eye of a new maid, a girl named Annie who hasn't yet been hardened by the cruelty of this place. The maids prepare a bowl of thin soup, their instructions clear. Hold down her tongue and pour it down her throat so she can't end her own life. Annie flinches as Dinah makes eye contact. There is a spark of something in the prisoner's gaze that the maid doesn't expect. Using the last of her divine strength, Dinah exerts a silent, hypnotic command. She needs the gag removed, and she needs it now. The other maids are distracted, their attention elsewhere as Annie moves closer, drawn in by a power she doesn't understand. Annie reaches out, her hands trembling as she begins to untie the cloth that has silenced Dinah for so long. A gasp of fresh air hits Dinah's lungs. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, her mouth is free. Annie looks confused, her mind clouded by the influence of the true saint. She doesn't realize the gravity of what she has just done. Dinah offers a small, tragic smile. She whispers a final thank you to the girl who has unwittingly granted her the only mercy she has left. The other maids scream in terror as they realize what is happening. They rush forward, but they are too late. As the blood spills and the darkness finally takes her, a grim truth is revealed. This was Dinah's 14th death, and the cycle is far from over. Waking up should be a relief, But for me, it is a recurring nightmare that I can't escape. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic rhythm of a girl who remembers exactly how her story ended. The voice is soft, honeyed, with a concern that feels like a blade against my throat. And there she is, Levine, the girl who sold my soul for her own glory, looking as innocent as a prayer. We sit side by side, a saintess in training and a girl who shouldn't even be breathing. The contrast is as sharp as the sunlight hitting the stone floor. The high, arched pillars of the temple training room. I know this place. I died in its shadows. I can feel her eyes scanning me, looking for a weakness she hasn't already exploited. She tells me I look pale. She reaches out, and my skin crawls with the memory of her touch. I flinch before she can even make contact. My body remembers the betrayal, even if she thinks I've forgotten. I have to play the part. I have to be the fragile, useless orphan they all believe me to be. I stammer an excuse about an upset stomach, my hands trembling as I clutch my chest. Deep down, I know the truth. This isn't just sickness. It's the weight of 1,000 lives pressing down on me. She smiles. It's the most dangerous thing in this temple. She calls us friends. The word tastes like ash in my mouth, but I have to swallow it. Because I remember the last time I begged for mercy. I remember the guards, the cold steel, and the way she looked at me then. She laughed at the idea of friendship. To her, I was never a person, just a stepping stone. The mask she wears now is perfect, but I've seen the rot underneath. I've heard her call me a stupid orphan while I bled. I've seen the hatred in those red eyes, a reflection of the world she thinks she owns. I spent my life kneeling at her feet, believing her lies, only to be discarded like trash when I was no longer useful. She told me to know my place. Now she looks down at me with fake pity, and I have to pretend I don't see the monster. When she pats my head, it feels like a curse. I twitch under the pressure, desperate to get away. My eyes are burning, not with tears of sadness, but with the searing heat of a resentment that has spanned decades. I force myself to say goodbye, my voice barely a whisper as I scramble to my feet. I run. I don't care where I'm going, as long as it's away from that suffocating kindness. The whispers follow me through the halls. To the other trainees, I'm just a filthy orphan wasting space. I run right into the nun, her cold gaze offering no comfort, only more judgment. She sighs as if my very existence is a burden she's tired of carrying. I ask for medicine, anything to numb the noise in my head. She reminds me that I have no divine power, that I'm hopeless. The laughter of the others echoes in the hall, sharp and biting. I finally reach the safety of my room, the heavy door clicking shut behind me like a prison cell. I collapse. The strength I spent pretending just vanished, leaving me hollow and broken. Why am I back? I died. I felt the end. But the universe has dragged me back to this hellish cycle once again. I can't even die when I want to. This life is a cage, and the lock is forged from my own destiny. I need to know. I need to see how much time I have before the tragedy starts all over again. The room is exactly the same. Every dusty corner, every cold board. It never changes, no matter how many times I'm reborn. I find my diary hidden in the drawer. My hands shake as I reach for it. I flip through the pages, searching for a date, for a sign of where I am in this timeline. August 4th, year 381. My heart stops. This is a year earlier than any of my previous returns. Usually, I wake up right before the saint dies. But this time, something is different. Did something change? Or is the cycle just finding new ways to torture me? I shouldn't hope. Hope is the first thing that betrays you in this temple. I close the diary with a snap. I can't stay here. I can't let them use me again. But I'm an orphan trainee. I belong to the temple. Running away isn't an option. I'm a prisoner in a holy house. I've tried everything. I've tried to escape, to hide, to change the path. It always ends in blood and Lavienne's smile. It's too painful. I can't bear to live through it all one more time. My heart thumps against my ribs. There has to be a way out, a permanent way. I wince, the darkness in my mind manifesting as a desperate, jagged thought. The blood drips onto the floor, a dark stain on the wood. I wait for the end, for the silence. But the light gathers in my palms. The divine power I'm supposedly lacking surges forward, unbidden and unwanted. I sigh as the wounds close. My own body is working against me, healing me before I can even find peace. As long as I have this power, I can't die. It's a cruel joke. I am immortal in a world that hates me. There was one way, though, a holy magic tool in the dungeon, the only thing capable of suppressing this gift. But I'm here, and the dungeon is miles of stone and guards away. I curl into a ball, a small figure lost in the vastness of a cycle that won't let me go. I look out the window at the temple grounds, my eyes hollow. I walk out into the light, my footsteps heavy on the path I've walked a dozen times before. The goddess statue looms over the courtyard, her stone eyes indifferent to my suffering. I stand before her, a small, broken sacrifice. Why did she give me this power? Why was I even born? I'm tired of being used. I'm tired of being the secret behind someone else's miracles. I remember when I first came here. I was just a starving child on the street, begging for a single coin. A priest found me. He called me child and promised me a life without hunger. I was so confused, so scared, but I followed him because I had nowhere else to go. He told the others I possessed divine power. To him, I wasn't a girl. I was a discovery. I reached out for a helping hand, thinking I was being saved. They gave me food. For a child who had known only hunger, a piece of bread felt like a miracle. They gave me a room. They told me it was mine. I didn't know then that it was just a cage with better furniture. I was so grateful. I smiled, thinking I had finally found a place where I belonged, a place with warmth. But I lost everything. That warmth was a lie, and the home was a trap. I look at the goddess now, and I feel nothing but resentment. She gave me a gift that became my curse. Her stone smile is as empty as Levine's. She doesn't care about the girl begging for the end. I whisper a final prayer, not for salvation, but for release. Goddess, please, just let me die. The wind rustles through the trees, carrying the scent of the coming season. A celebration is approaching. I remember it now. A festival at the temple. Crowds, chaos, and high-ranking officials. My eyes widen as a thought takes root. In the middle of all that noise, there might be a gap in the armor. There is a way to finally end this life and make sure I never, ever come back. The temple is a place of light and celebration, but for those of us working in the shadows, it's a prison of endless, thankless labor. Everyone is rushing, preparing for the one day of the year when the most powerful families in the empire descend upon us to play at being holy. I'm just a girl carrying a basket of apples, a small, invisible cog in a machine that doesn't care if I break or disappear. Among the invited guests is the man the entire world fears most, Archduke de Tercia. He's a man who has never lost a battle, leaving nothing but scorched earth and a mountain of skulls in his wake. They call him a monster, a murderer obsessed with slaughter. And that is exactly why I need him. I need someone who won't hesitate to end me. I've reached my absolute limit. I can't do this for another day, let alone another lifetime. But no matter how many times I fall, no matter how much I want to just stay down and let go, the world won't let me rest. The sisters here don't see a human being. They see a tool that needs to be kept in line through fear. Suddenly, my body flares with that unwanted, familiar light. This divine power, it isn't a blessing. It's a curse that heals every wound I try to inflict on myself, keeping me a prisoner in my own skin. It forces me to stay alive, trapped in this hellish cycle of regression and pain. If I want to die, I've realized I can't do it myself. The light is too strong. I need someone whose power is so absolute, so violent, that even my healing won't be able to keep up. My heart skips a beat when a voice suddenly calls out my name, cutting through my dark thoughts. It's him, Khalid Demiroy, the Empire's golden boy, the knight everyone adores for his supposed purity. He offers me that same gentle, practiced smile that used to make me feel safe in my first life. But I know better now. I've seen the rot that lies beneath that perfect, shining exterior. Once, I actually liked him. I thought he was the only one in this cold place who treated me with genuine kindness. But through numerous cycles of hell, I learned the truth. When the world turned to ash, he was the first to look away. He never once reached out to save me when it mattered most. To me, he's nothing but a hypocrite, a man who plays the hero while letting the innocent suffer in silence. He asks if I'm okay, sensing the cold tension radiating from my shoulders. I don't give him the satisfaction of a real answer. I have a ceremony to prepare for and a plan to set in motion. I brush past him without another word, my heart hammering against my ribs as I make my escape. He's left standing there, confused, wondering why the quiet, obedient little saint finally has thorns. Miles away from the temple's suffocating walls, the Tercia Manor stands as a monument to absolute power and discipline. Ben, the head butler, is greeted with the kind of adoration usually reserved for the high nobility. He's the glue holding this massive estate together, moving with a grace that masks the immense pressure he's under. To the staff, he is the picture of perfection, the ideal servant for the most feared house in the empire. The maids swoon at his every word, blinded by the polished, charming surface he projects. They think it's easy being the right hand of the Archduke, but the reality is far more exhausting. They say Ben knows everything that happens within these walls, down to the names of the birds in the manor's trees. He is the keeper of secrets, the one man who truly understands the complexity of the master in the study. But even a man as composed as Ben has his limits. Dealing with his grace isn't just a job, it's a daily, high-stakes battle for survival and order. Inside the private chambers, the Archduke prepares himself for the upcoming temple ceremony. Duin Tercia doesn't look like a man going to a house of God. He looks like a man preparing for a silent execution. Ben tries to hide his growing frustration. The temple expects white, a symbol of purity and submission to the divine. But the Archduke has deliberately chosen black. It's a cold reminder of where his true loyalties lie. One look from him is enough to freeze the blood in your veins. He doesn't take suggestions, and he certainly doesn't follow orders. The heavy tension in the room only breaks when his two sons suddenly appear. Jude and Dennis, the only two people in the entire world who aren't afraid to look this monster in the eye. Jude is a constant whirlwind of energy, always coming home with a new scrape or a bandage on his face from some exploit, while Dennis is the calm one, the quiet intellect who watches everything with sharp, knowing eyes. Even a man as cold as Duin can't help but soften, if only by a fraction, when his boys are near. He sighs, looking like any other weary father trying to navigate the chaos of two growing children. Before he leaves for the temple, he offers them a rare gesture of kindness, a gift of their own choosing. Dennis, ever the dedicated scholar, asks for a rare book to sharpen his mind while his father is away. But Jude? Jude has something much more ambitious and unexpected in mind. His eyes sparkle with a mischief that usually spells a great deal of trouble for everyone involved. He doesn't want toys or books or sweets. He looks his father in the eye and declares that he wants a younger sister. The room goes completely silent. It's the one thing the Archduke can't simply buy or win on a battlefield. De Win tries to be reasonable, offering to find a playmate or a servant of the same age to keep him company. But Jude isn't backing down. He's tired of being the youngest, tired of the quiet, empty halls of the manor. For a split second, the Archduke flinches. It's a rare, fleeting moment of vulnerability. He is forced to remind his son of the harsh, cold reality they live in. A younger sister isn't possible, he explains, because there is no mother in this house to provide one. The words hang heavy in the air, a stark reminder of the loss they have all suffered. Jude looks absolutely heartbroken, his simple wish crushed by the cold logic of the adult world. Ben watches the awkward exchange in silence, wishing he could simply disappear into the floorboards. But then Dennis speaks up. He's been thinking, calculating a solution as he always does. He tells his father that getting a sister isn't actually impossible. There is another way to grow a family. "You can just adopt someone," he says with a grin. And just like that, the wheels of fate begin to turn toward the temple. Inside the gilded carriage of the Archduke, a heavy silence hangs over the afternoon light. It is a world of luxury that belies the cold, emotional void growing at the center of his family. Archduke Tercia looks out at his domain with a gaze that is both weary and distant. He is a man who can command armies, yet he finds himself powerless against the growing apathy of his own blood. His companion tries to offer a lighthearted dismissal, suggesting that children are simply fickle. But the Archduke isn't interested in platitudes. He knows the rot in his household is deeper than mere childhood whims. His eyes narrow as he reflects on the mistakes he's made. He thought he could buy his son's happiness, replacing a mother's warmth with cold, expensive treasures. He realizes now that by substituting parental affection with material wealth, he has inadvertently raised two boys who are fundamentally broken. Surrounded by a mountain of toys they never asked for, his sons have grown bored of the world before they've even truly entered it. They tire of objects as quickly as they tire of people. The most terrifying realization is their inability to form a bond with anyone. Their hearts are as stagnant as the still air in their playroom, disconnected from the very concept of love. He decides on a radical cure. If his sons cannot learn to feel on their own, perhaps a good-hearted child brought into their lives can act as a catalyst for the emotions they lack. His intuition tells him this is the only way. Adoption is a grave matter, but the Archduke has always been a man of decisive, if sometimes cold, action. As the carriage pulls up to the grand temple, the plan is already in motion. He will find a child, a saint-like presence to fix the broken dynamics of his house. Inside the cathedral, the air is thick with incense and the droning of prayers for the empire's future. The Archduke sits at the front, a pillar of prestige and isolation. He sighs, clearly finding the ceremony tedious. To him, this is just another formal obligation, but for someone else in this room, it's the most important moment of her life. From the back of the room, Dinah watches him with a mixture of awe and desperation. He feels worlds away, protected by status, distance, and a legion of guards. She knows that simply getting close enough to speak to him is an impossible task for a girl like her. Her eyes are heavy with the weight of a plan that feels more like a suicide mission. Her focus is shattered by Sarah, another orphan who clings to her past aristocratic status like a weapon. Sarah demands that Dinah do the grunt work, treating her like a servant in the house of God. Dinah looks up, her expression hollow. She is tired of being the target of Sarah's insecurities, but in this world, an orphan from the slums has no voice to talk back with. She clenches her hands, the fabric of her simple dress bunching under her fingernails. In her past life, she would have bowed her head and obeyed without a word. The other children watch in silence, used to the hierarchy of cruelty that exists even among the discarded. Sarah's arrogance fills the space, demanding submission. Sarah's voice rises to a screech, reminding everyone that she was born an aristocrat, while Dinah is nothing. It's a reminder of the invisible walls that Dinah is determined to tear down. Sarah sneers, reveling in the power she has over those even more vulnerable than herself. She mocks Dinah for having no family, hitting the one bruise that never heals. Dinah bows her head, but it isn't out of submission. It's out of a quiet, burning resolve. She didn't choose to be an orphan, but she will choose how this story ends. She catches a movement from the corner of her eye. The Archduke is moving. This is the moment she's been waiting for, and she can't let it slip away. The seat at the front is empty. The pillar of her hope has vanished into the corridors of the temple. Panic begins to set in, sharper than any of Sarah's insults. She springs to her feet, her heart hammering against her ribs. If she loses him now, she loses her only chance at a life that isn't defined by suffering. Her eyes dart through the crowd, searching for that distinctive silver hair and the broad shoulders of the man who holds her destiny in his hands. There he is, heading toward the exit. He moves with the effortless grace of someone who never has to look back, unaware of the small shadow trailing him. Suddenly, a hand clamps onto her arm. Sarah isn't finished with her. She's furious that Dinah dared to ignore her, and her grip is bruisingly tight. The commotion draws the attention of a sister, whose stern presence looms over them. The girls flinch, the threat of punishment immediate and cold. Sarah instantly pivots, putting on a mask of helpful concern. She lies through her teeth, claiming she was just trying to get Dinah to sit back down for the ceremony. Leaning in, Sarah whispers a venomous command for Dinah to play along. Her eyes are full of a petty, dangerous spite that promises pain if she's crossed. Dinah's hands tremble as she grips her skirt. She is trapped between two types of terror: the immediate wrath of the temple and the lifelong misery of staying here. She looks toward the door. Every second she wastes is a second closer to the Archduke disappearing forever. She can't afford to be a victim today. She mumbles a quick excuse and breaks into a run, leaving the mocking laughter of the other orphans behind her. She doesn't care about the rules anymore. She dashes through the grand halls, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The scale of the temple seems designed to make her feel small, but her resolve is growing larger with every step. She bursts out into the courtyard, the bright sunlight momentarily blinding her. She scans the area, her chest heaving as she fears she's already too late. Then she sees him. He's standing by the fountain, preparing to leave. The world seems to go still as she locks onto her target. She shouts his name, her voice cracking the dignified silence of the courtyard. The Archduke pauses, his back to her, a titan who has finally heard a pebble drop. She takes a step forward, her legs feeling like lead. Doubts fled her mind. Can she really pull this off? Can a child like her truly manipulate a man like him? She forces herself to frown, to harden her heart. This isn't about being a child anymore. It's about survival. A chance like this will never come again. She breaks into a sprint, the air whipping past her face. She has to reach him before the guards intervene, before the wall of his status shuts her out for good. The Archduke turns, his expression unreadable. His guards are already moving, their faces hardening as they realize an intruder is approaching their master. The sound of drawing swords rings out, a sharp, lethal warning. The blades cross in front of her, a steel barrier that represents the absolute divide between their worlds. The Archduke looms over her, his shadow swallowing her whole. He looks down at the ragged girl who dared to interrupt his departure, his presence suffocatingly heavy. She looks up at him, her eyes wide with a desperate, calculated terror. She has to make him look at her, not as a nuisance, but as something more. She begs for just a moment of his time, her voice trembling with a genuine fear that she expertly channels into her plea. She is gambling everything on his curiosity. The swords part as he gives a silent command. He is intrigued, or perhaps just amused by her audacity. Either way, the path is clear. Dinah clenches her fist, her eyes burning with a hidden fire. She has his attention, but now she must do something unforgettable to keep it. He notes her candidate robes and asks what business a future saint could possibly have with a man of his reputation. His voice is cold, testing her. She knows that if she wants to leave a lasting mark, she has to be dangerous. To get close to a heart as guarded as his, she must present a threat he can't ignore. She takes one more step, closing the final gap between them. She can see the fine details of his coat, the lack of warmth in his emerald eyes. This is as close as she'll ever get. She tells herself she can do this. Slowly, her hand slips into the folds of her dress, her fingers closing around the cold hilt of a small, sharp blade. With a sudden, wild scream, she lunges at him. It's a clumsy, desperate charge, the act of a child playing at being an assassin, but it's enough to shatter the peace. He reacts instantly, his hand snapping out to catch her wrists. Her small body trembles against his strength, the knife held harmlessly between them. He snatches the blade from her hand with effortless ease. His face is a mask of cold fury as he looks down at her. To him, this is a pathetic, reckless attempt on his life. In a blur of motion, he turns the weapon back on her, the tip of the blade resting against the soft skin of her throat. The power dynamic has been restored in the most lethal way possible. He demands to know who sent her, his voice low and dangerous. Dinah stares up at him, her breath hitching as she realizes her plan has worked. She finally has the Archduke's undivided, terrifying attention.